is an upgrade guide for Cabaretti Cacophony, the Naya or white, red, and green deck from the streets of New Capenna Commander decks.
Alrighty, so let's, before we get too far into this deck, read our face commander. Usually we're building our deck around our commander, so we better see what our commander wants us to sort of do. So essentially, 4 mana, 3/3, enters the battlefield. We create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. So we're essentially getting 4 power for 4. Not too exciting. But at the beginning of combat, on each player's turn, we may tap 2 untapped creatures we control, and then if we do, target creature gets +2/+2, gains trample until end of turn, and we goad that creature. So what we're doing with this deck, for the most part, I think, is trying to goad all of our opponent's stuff. Not that there's no other, like, goad Naya style commanders, but this is also making tokens, so we kind of want tokens and things like that, or a lot of bodies on the field so that we can goad lots of things and whatnot. But we also want those creatures to be there so that we can kill our last opponent, essentially, because when it's down to a 1v1, we won't be able to goad that player and have them not attack us or anything like that. We will have to actually, have a board of stuff that we can overwhelm them with, so that we can actually, do stuff and kill them and win the game and whatnot. So this is a pretty simple commander for the most part, I think. Like the goading and whatnot, all of that stuff, and trying to get enough things on the board to protect ourselves and whatnot through each player's turn. Like Seaboard Muse would be a really great addition to this deck if you guys have the budget, and I will discuss a little bit more budgety stuff sometimes here and there. But I'm not going to do this in a, this is, like this way or whatnot. But we are going to, go through it like that as well. So with all that being said, we better have a look at the actual deck list for this commander. All right, so let's move on from that. Sandworm is okay. Slows down flyers. I think Assemble the Legion is incredibly slow. And so is Sandworm, to be honest. So I wouldn't say that you have to take them out, but you could take them out. Outpost Siege is fairly slow as well. We could just run Beast Whisperer if we want card draw and other effects like that for the most part. So Felidar Retreat's pretty darn good. I would want to see playing more lands, effects and whatnot, or playing some more lands as well, but still alright. Creating treasures is good when we want the tokens, but it's only a one-off effect for the most part. Making the treasures isn't, but do we need this? I think this would be better in a Boros deck where it actually needs it. We don't really need it. Okay, that's interesting. But I would say not what we really want to do. Duelist Heritage is fine. Beastmasters means we can go over the top and, just smash our opponents. This is okay. That's fine. I don't know. I don't understand what this is kind of doing in this deck. It's a very controlling card. We're a very, sort of controlling deck to an extent, but we want our creatures to enter untapped unless we've got Seaborn Muse effects and whatnot, so that we can tap our opponent's stuff. We want to be able to tap our opponent's stuff. We don't want this sort of thing. I don't know. I feel like we want this on our creatures, but it feels like a lot better when we put a lot of these. We can put a lot of these things on our opponent's creatures, but we obviously want the tokens. We can get Command Sphere out of here. We can get Idle Oblivion out of here. We can get these Mana Rocks out of here. And Bloodthirsty Blade. Like I said, we could still use it because we can put it on our opponent's stuff. But for the most part, I would say we could just do other things. Okay, that's real good. That's a really good finisher. A lot of decks will want this card, I think, even though it doesn't seem to be registering much in terms of price. I mean, it is 6 mana, but still, that's real good. That's okay. I would think to take it out. Camaraderie is fine. Not too amazing. I don't love any of these confluences or charms or whatnot. I would take them out. Shamanic Rev, fine. What does this do? Okay, that's actually okay. Though I would think that this belongs in a red or Boros deck more so than in a deck like this. Or maybe an Izzet Spellslinger style deck more than this. It's certainly not the sort of thing we need. I mean, we are going to have a lot of small stuff in this deck for the most part. So we could kill all of our opponent's big stuff. Though, I guess that's kind of getting towards the end of the game for the most part. So I would think that this is fine. Harmonize, we can get this out of here and we find much better. So it's an act of treason for each opponent. Draw a card and... Wow, that's actually real good. What? This is 3 mana? I didn't read that properly. Holy crap. That is really good. I did not read that it was 3 mana. That is so good. Oh my god. This is fine. Cultivate we could do better then, but you can keep it in. Call of the Copper Coats is okay. Charm, get it out of here. Beast Within's fine. Coop, yeah, like we could Wrath and then get our tokens back and whatnot, so that way we can start tapping things again and or at least defend ourselves if somebody else starts making a board really quickly. And that's fine. I think that's cool. I don't love Boros Charm. I think the only mode that's ever really relevant for this deck would be the Indestructible. So I would say we could do something else, or we could run Recursion. I never think that these indestructible spells do a whole lot. It always seems like you find them after the board wipes happened and whatnot, or the board wipe never happens, and then you're left with 4 damage to one player or give one thing double strike. And since we're not really a Voltron deck or whatnot, that double strike isn't going to be much. So, and plus we don't have that many big things. Or a mutation, artifact mutation. Why are we playing... Like, I get that they make tokens, and that's okay, but we could just run something that destroys artifacts and enchantments. So, I don't know about that. I actually would like to see them just do one that's both one day. Hope they do it. But anyway, so you give one player an XX Tree Folk. You and that player get a Tree Folk. Then you choose an opponent, and you and that opponent get X 1/1 elf creature, warriors, whatever. Like, it's fine to get us tokens, but why are we giving our opponents stuff? Like, yeah, sure, we want our opponents to have stuff too, in a sense, so that they can hit our opponents and whatnot for us, so we don't have to do all the work. But again, I don't know. We don't want that much. Thunderfoot is good, but I think it's like a finisher, so it could stay in. It's fine. I think this is interesting, but it's not really what we're doing for the most part, I would say. So it could come out. It would be its own interesting deck. Kazul's fine. Gahiji's real good. That's okay. But it has to really die to get a whole lot out of it, and I don't think we've got sack outlets for this deck. So I would say that it can come out. This is interesting. Certainly, especially if we can have had people's stuff goaded, or we can goad people's stuff as well. So we give it unblockable, and it has to attack. Goad means that it has to attack really anyway, so, and not us, so. But, yeah, unblockable's still alright. Okay, that's fine, I guess. The treasures is the best part of this. I would say the damage, if you get late game and have a whole bunch of mana sitting around, might be decent and whatnot. But I, again, don't really see the point in this of this in this deck for the most part. Because we could, like, we could just do more things. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like what we need. This is so many interesting cards for like a political deck, but it's not what this deck wants to do. Very interesting again, not what this deck wants to do for the most part because we don't get control of it. That's interesting. That's good. That's actually what we want to do. That's really cool. But it is only it on our field. But then again, we're giving it to our opponents, and those things are goad, which is good. It has first strike, trample, and haste. So those abilities are all good, I think. Like Arasta does make tokens sometimes, but I wouldn't love to rely on it to make us tokens. We're reliant on our opponents too much. I like Zerzoth, actually. Zerzoth's pretty cool. Even though it kind of relies on our opponents sometimes, but for the most part, we can also control this, so that's fine. Like Wood Elves, that's fine. I don't understand what like these parlay cards are kind of doing here. Like, I really don't understand. We can get this out of here, that's fine. Scoot Swarm is a really good card for this deck. Oh, that's real good. Yeah, I forget what that is. That's cool. Advocate's good. We don't need this. We just don't need this. Like, we have better card advantage, better card selection, better things than this. We don't need it. This is good. That's fine. Okay, that's okay. Could be an alright finisher-ish, though we could just, like, have other things. Agitator Anthos good. Tribe Elder's good. We're going to have lots of creatures for the most part. Though we could just take this out and have some other options. But, yeah, it's fine. So, yeah, that looks like all of what was in this deck that I was thinking about. It's interesting as well that they reprinted Path to Exile in this deck, but reprinted Swords in another deck and didn't put more paths in and whatnot. But anyway, that's fine. Like, someone gets Path to Exile, cool, that's great. $5-6 card instead of getting Swords, which is like a 50-cent card. Oh boy, if you get this deck. So this deck is good in that regard to get. At least. So, but anyway, we'll move on and we'll go and have a look at some of the cards that I would suggest to put. Alrighty, so here we are on EDH Rec. We're going to have a look at a few cards that I would suggest for this deck. I couldn't figure out a way to do it in a budget setting, but obviously if a card is out of your budget, i.e. perhaps you can only afford all cards being under $5, then just disregard what I'm saying about any card that is over whatever price range that you guys are looking for, because some people are wanting to build, just put $50 into this deck and then say, well, it's done for now and, it's ready to go and whatnot, and I'm just going to play it and have fun with it or they're just like, oh, well, it is what it is, I'm just going to play it and it does what it does, and that's it. So, but anyway, couple cards. Of course, Marisi is the old goading Naya commander, so I would say that he's pretty good in this deck. He has to hit our opponents to goad their stuff, and it's only one player at a time. To be honest, in a sense, it would be a better commander, especially if we had Kedis, the little lizard that whenever our commander hits, it hits each opponent essentially. So that means that we goad everyone. But in a sense, we have to stick to what this deck is doing and the commander that we've kind of got for the most part. So, but still, it would be really good in the deck. I'm not going to talk about too many like auto-includey good cards or whatnot for the most part, because if I have to tell you guys that Sun Pearl Road and Bountiful Promenade are good cards, then there's something wrong, I think, to a degree. But still, certainly there are some of those cards that are out there and whatnot that you want to put in. Good. A lot of the cards actually I noticed are red, so we're going to be very red focused, I think, in this deck. Disrupt Decorum, it's only for one turn, but I still think it is really good, especially so all of our opponents are sort of tapped out for the most part. That means we can sort of go for the win and whatnot after that, and poke through those last points of damage and whatnot, or hopefully, and whatnot, so that we can win the game. I think Vengeful Ancestors okay. I think because it only goes one thing, but it goes something when it enters and when it attacks. But it still can be really useful, especially when you can tap it on the first turn, because that ability on our commander does get around Summoning Sickness, essentially. So that can still be really good, goading more things and whatnot. And if a goaded creature attacks, it deals a damage to its controller, so we're still doing more damage to our opponents, which is, what we kind of want to do. Geode Ranger is just Disrupt Decorum kind of on a stick, but only when we landfall, which is, going to happen. We're in green. We've got ramp. We can play lands and whatnot. We might not be playing many lands per turn, but even goading doesn't stack, so it doesn't really matter that we're not playing many lands per turn, especially in that later game. But still, it's really useful to goad our opponent's stuff. And again, sometimes the Disrupt Decorum doesn't come at the right time or whatnot. This can stick out there on the battlefield, can keep goading our opponent's stuff when we need to and whatnot, and keep those blockers sort of tapped down so that we can get in with our damage that we need to do. Combat Calligrapher, really great, gives us a flying creature in the air that attacks our opponents, and of course, again, gives our opponents a little bit more incentive sometimes to attack each other and whatnot, and things like that, and it just gives us the free value again, because we're always going to be attacking our opponents, so it's real good in that regard. Frontier Warmonger to give anything that's attacking our opponent's menace. Menace is pretty good. That means they have to block with 2 or more creatures each combat and whatnot. That can thin out the board sometimes and whatnot, or thin out damage and whatnot as well. So Menace can be really effective at that sort of thing. I was thinking Avatar of Slaughter is also pretty good, giving all of our stuff double strike and giving all our opponents' stuff double strike as well, doubling the damage that our opponents are going to do to each other when we're goading them. And whatnot. They have to attack each turn if able, which sort of is kind of mostly irrelevant to some point, but sometimes it is a bit relevant, but then that sometimes means that people will attack us. But if we've got enough incentives out that say, hey, look, you can attack our opponents and whatnot and get these benefits instead of attacking us and get no benefits, essentially, like Frontier Warmonger, Combat Calligrapher, some of these other things and whatnot, or we just get a benefit out of it even if you do attack us, like Kazul. So that's something else that we could definitely do. I think Giselle is also real good because it halves the damage that we take and doubles the damage that we deal out. Actually, it doubles our opponent's damage as well, so that's also really another good point, because I just reread that to be like, hey, does it actually damage our opponents? Does it actually work for our opponents hitting each other, essentially? And I think it does, so that would be really useful in the deck. I think Miri can be useful as well, because if we tap her, then people can only attack us with one creature, and that can be really useful. And if she's attacking, the opponent can only block with one creature. So that helps us out quite a bit in this style of deck. Gets through those damages that we need. Erois, again, more menace, essentially. Or is it? I think they did errata it to menace now. But also protects our stuff from being dealt damage on attacks. So that means that our stuff essentially has indestructible for the most part, which is really useful, and means our stuff won't die, especially to death touch and things like that. Orange Frostfang is just amazing because, again, death touch and card draw, both of those things are things that we want. I don't know whether we want Windborn Muse and things like this, but maybe. I think Kazul and cards like that, I think Kazul is pretty much the only one that does it, but still, cards that actually also make tokens for us that mean we can tap them and goad our opponents and stuff like that are much better. This, we can still use it to goad, but we also need other creatures. I was thinking maybe Tangrath could be good, but because we can just give it to an opponent when they're attacking, as long as we've got to one of their things, give them 5 extra at minimum damage, which can be really useful. And it comes to us all the time as well, still, so, or it can come to us as well, as long as we've got one attacker to go out there with, as long as we're not just tapping our stuff to goad stuff all the time. I think Frenzy Startle Brutes also a good include, because giving haste to our opponents, as long as they attack our opponents, is good. Plus it helps us have haste as well, so that's really useful. I'm not going to talk about how good Beast Whisperer and cards like that are, because they're obviously pretty good, but things that are main synergy cards like this I will talk about. I still think Oddrick can be pretty good. It does depend. I think it's probably more of a late game kind of card that we'd use to finish off the game and have unblockable against our last opponent. That way we can basically just win the game and whatnot with all of our tokens and all of our stuff that we've made throughout the game. I think Herald of the Host and Myriad abilities are interesting, but certainly not too important. Adline, pretty darn good. Just gives us that extra token. Yes, it's tapped and attacking, but when we untap and stuff, that can be really good, and it still gives us extra damage and whatnot, things like that. So Nils, I'm not sure about Nils, but I think that it has 2 relevant abilities, which is buffing stuff up and slowing our opponents from attacking us. So both of those things could be really good. It helps our opponents do more damage to our opponents, but they can just pay to attack us. But eventually the cost gets fairly high and whatnot, so it can be really good. There are some of these other cards that are sort of slow people from attacking us, but they're not that amazing and whatnot, but still they're there. Like, I'm not going to, again, talk about staples like Sun Titan, things like that. I think Blazing Archon is a lot of mana, but it's real good. So, like, it just means that people cannot attack us, even when we're, like, not being able to goad them. That just means we can get in our free attacks now and try to kill people. Aurelia can give us extra combats, which is pretty good, but again, not too interesting on the actual synergies and whatnot. Let's skip over instants and sorceries for the most part, I would say, because there's not going to be too much here that I would say is too important to the strategy for the most part, like board wipes and removal mostly, and ramp. So mostly I don't think it's going to be worth our time looking. What else? Because I think maybe we want a Norn's Annex and things like that. Crawl space could be interesting or could be good. I think these more board wide style of effects like Norn's Annex and Crawl Space are much better, just in my opinion, than things like Assault Suit for the most part. But yeah, they're still pretty good. Like I said, Myriad's pretty interesting. Blade of Selves can be good. Even on our commander, because even though that token will die, or those tokens will, the copies of it will die, we still get the tokens out of it, so that can be really useful to help goad more things and whatnot. Again, I'm not sure how much Ghostly Prison style effects we want, but it's obviously pretty decent. Duelist Heritage, again, we can give double strike to our opponents, or we can give it to ourselves. Actually, there's that new enchantment, I think it's Paladin class from the new set that basically does the same thing as this. I think it's only for our creatures though, however, but still, like, that can be really useful as well. Plus it has some other modes that are pretty useful. I think Rhythm of the Wild can be useful because, again, we can give our stuff haste, or we can give our stuff a counter, making our stuff more easy to defend our opponent's attacks and whatnot, and we can just all get in there at the last minutes with our last attackers and whatnot that we need to get that damage through. I think, again, Sphere of Safety and some of these effects are good, but I don't know how much we want them. They still could be good. Dictate of the Twin Gods could be good as well, because it doubles more damage and it helps our opponents, win us the game sort of thing, because that's kind of what we're doing. We're kind of like hoping our opponents will do most of the work for us by us just tapping our creatures and whatnot. It's actually interesting that I didn't see any Seaborn Muses in this, but I said Seaborn Muse earlier. Actually, our natural growth can also fit into that category of increasing our power. Yeah, our power. I'm just rereading. So yeah, that can be useful. Honestly, at this point, beyond what there is there, I would say that's pretty much it. I'm not going to look at mana rocks or really utility lands for the most part. And again, I'm not really going to look at lands because, again, like I'm not going to tell you that Temple Garden's a good card, guys. Come on. You should know this. And I'm not going to say Sakura Tribe Elder needs to go in the deck or 3 visits because obviously those cards are good or whatnot. And you just need to find the room to like take some stuff out or whatever. But anyway, that is pretty much most of the things that I would think to recommend for a deck like this. It does change based on the reprints. As I say, I never read the reprints properly and never remember what's in there because there's always something. But anyway, let's get finished up with this deck and we'll move on to another one.
All right, that is it for the Cabaretti Cacophony deck list here for today. So let me know what you guys think about this deck. Do you want to see some other kind of build? Maybe one of the sub-commanders built in this regard, or built some other sort of style of deck, maybe with Phoebe or Fabe, boss is confident, or something else. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments below. If you guys ask, I shall deliver, as I say. Yeah, I'll certainly be in those comments, trying to respond to you all. Really love interacting with you guys, talking about EDH and all these geeky things that we love. So yeah, I'll see you down there in those comments, or I'll see you in the next one. Hey, you've just finished watching one of our videos. A bunch of other videos are popping up on your screen now for you to check out, so why not check them out?